Well, it seems Chuck Dixon once again. Well, yeah, once again he's been in the news with buying the comics. I think this is the fourth time this has happened. And I kind of like this because a friend of mine sent me a link to this, and it's kind of funny just on the grounds of it's titled "Former DC writer Chuck Dixon explains how being blacklisted from the mainstream affects his friendships. Batman scribe and Bane creator Chuck Dixon finds himself on the outside looking in these days, despite his many years and contributions to DC and mainstream comics. But he has balanced viewpoints regardless of being blacklisted from the industry he pioneered in generations in his generation. Asked about being ostracized by the big two over his political views on an episode of his YouTube series Ask Chuck Dixon, and if he's still in contact with anyone he used to work with, he answered that he'd do lunch with anyone, whether they are classic liberal or a bomb-throwing communist. Dixon used Eclipse Comics founder and editor Dean Mullany as an example of someone he would still talk to or break bread with, though he doesn't think of Mullany as a communist per se. Quote, he's certainly far on the other side of the political spectrum than I am, but we like each other, end quote, Dixon said. And that is the sad thing about the state of discourse in America when it comes to politics, is like, you will disown your own family if they disagree with you or have no thing in common with you politically. Like, how shallow is your life? How sheltered are you to do that? It's really pathetic, in my opinion. Quote, I would never stop being anybody's friend based on their ideology, he added, unless they got really ugly and started talking about saying fire to orphanages. Dixon would draw the line there, but views bashing friendships on political policies or identification are very weird, or as very weird. That said, he continued, he knows he's all kinds of listed in the industry, but it's not entirely for political reasons. Comics have always had a cliquish nature to them, he explained, and some people didn't want him around anymore. Yeah, that's also a sad thing. It's like people who have done a lot for the industry, just because their politics don't match with what the people in power want. It's like, yeah, no, bye. Goodbye. Dixon, though, rejects the notion he is a victim or canceled because I refuse to be canceled. Yeah, like Matt Walsh said, like, to be canceled means you consent to it. People like Chuck Dixon are like, yeah, I do not consent. And he said, because I refuse to be canceled, and part of this is because I refuse to apologize, since he did nothing but speak his mind and openly expressed his conservative opinions, which is not wrong. Furthermore, he says you can only be canceled if you give in to the mob and apologize. Exactly. Which the prevailing wisdom of those on Dixon's side and in the comic community, anybody offended just loves getting offended, and they must be a lot of fun at Thanksgiving dinner, Dixon said. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. If one of my relatives was like this, I wouldn't want to be around them for when they're in the mood to be bitching and moaning all day. I'd wait till they got over it. As we know, the left doesn't like to leave people alone, whereas the right will, as long as you don't go after the kids or destroy any property. The latter is okay more and more with letting freak flags fly, said Dixon, but the left will destroy you if you don't celebrate or loathe the things they do. Digging deeper, he revealed there's a lot of closeted conservatives and apolitical people who work in the comic book because, surprise, they like to draw or write or to create and want to work in peace. They disagree with coworkers on policies but still go over to their houses for dinner on occasion. Yeah, and that's another sad thing is like, this is a conversation I once had with Dan, is look to like people like Stan Lee and Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby. Now, they had vastly different political views, I would think. Jack Kirby I don't know as much about. I remember hearing he hated commies, weirdly enough, which I'm not going to lie. He may have been a Democrat, but I'm like, you know what? I now respect Jack Kirby. Anyone who hates commies can't be that bad of a guy. But anyway, and but more so Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. Now, Steve Ditko, from what I can tell, was a staunch conservative, or sort of what, not maybe staunch, but was conservative. Stan Lee was more of a, he could be aligned as, like, you used to have two groups of hippies. You had radicals and reformers, or liberals back in the day. But Stan Lee came from the baby boomer age, or of the age of reformers. Like, they saw there was a problem with society, they wanted reform. And so, yeah. But these two, despite their political differences, they could get the fuck along and get shit done. Like, the only reason why they stopped getting along was over money. Imagine that. You throw your friendship away over money, of all things. And it wasn't, as far as I can tell, it wasn't necessarily Stanley's fault. It was... Anyway. Point is, you don't have to be of the same political mindset to work with someone. Or at least you shouldn't. To illustrate his point, Dixon discussed an aspect of his time working at CrossGen Comics. On an average day, certain people's heads would be buried in headphones listening to Rush Limbaugh while they worked. These CrossGen employees were, well, they were very privately paranoid about their El Rushbo fandom, thinking and scared they'd be fired by their boss and the company founder, Mark Alisi. They were under the impression the late businessman was a screaming liberal, but Dixon laughs off this perception of Alisi and the trepidation that it inspired. He found out years later from socializing with Alisi that he was anything but, and probably listened to Rush as well. Still, the paranoia would persist, and it does everything in the industry because of job security, Dixon observed. Many people go along and keep their jobs and will virtue signal to remain relevant. Yeah, just look at Jerry Conway, a man whose irrelevancy is so bad. Well, it's bad. It's so bad that some Dixon knew to be apolitical became bomb-throwing pinkos on social media to be or seem down with the struggle. Yeah, I'm hip with it. However, and that's the funny thing, it's like, this reminds me of that old Simpsons joke. It's like, I used to be with it. Then they changed what it was. And now what's it seems new and scary to me. I wish they had gone down that route. However, when he talks to them, he can tell they're not that and their politics were learned. He also adds they don't want to be singled out and so march along in a long and fear Dixon could never stoop to. For one, he speaks his mind and does so for years. Doing a 180 to fit in after all these years would never work, barring a stroke or brain trauma that could cause him to vote Biden. Speaking of tumors, there's a picture of one on this article. How Dixon can be friends with people like that in today's social climate as he tries to understand. There's a editing error here. Where they come from, the people I remain friends with that I don't agree with, he says, I understand perfectly why they feel the way they feel, and I hope they feel the same way for me. And I would say no, because these fuckers will throw you under the bus and kick you while you're bleeding, while you're dying on the streets from all your injuries, is what I would say. But anyway, it is kind of sad that there's the and what's really disgusting is Chuck Dixon has done probably a lot for the comic book industry, probably more than I'm actually aware of. I actually had a friend of mine try to convince me to reach out to him to see if I could do an interview or a live stream with him. I would actually like to do that. I disagree with him clearly on some stuff, like when it comes to the hero's journey. But I wouldn't mind talking to him. It's just I'm not that brave of a person, so yeah. Fortune favors the bold, I guess. I guess I might try it someday. But anyway, where was that? Oh yeah. Despite the fact he's done so much, from what I understand, creating Bane, Bane is an iconic character. He broke the bat, basically. That's quite an accomplishment. I kind of wish he had gone one further, but oh well. So it's really sad that, just despite the fact he disagrees with some of these people on one little thing, it's like you deserve to have your life ruined. That's kind of pathetic and asinine. Now that I think about it, and and what Dixon says kind of has me optimistic. Like I'm glad that some people are willing to at least come to the middle, and at the least not be cunts about it. All right, and Chuck Dixon is a good example of that. Good on him. I'm continuously made to regret the fact that I bashed him the first time I responded to an article about him. All right, good on Chuck Dixon. God bless him. I wish there were more like him on the left and the right. Anyway, have a nice day and pray for sanity.